I would love to claim victory on Greece. And I think everybody around the cradle of democracy, as is often referred, Greece, would love to do that. But the first ones that should do it are the Greeks themselves. Because they are the ones, and I'm here particularly thinking of the lower, the middle class, the employees of Greece, who are taking the blunt of some of the reforms that have been conducted so far. We all know the numbers. We all know by how much the economy has shrunk, the number of Greeks who have emigrated to leave the country because they felt that there was no hope, the level of unemployment, and so on and so forth. Where we are at the moment is a space where some, we call them parametric reforms, because they will sustain the Greek economy over the course of time, have finally been agreed in terms of legislation now, implementation as soon as the conditions of growth are consolidated in order to allow for those measures to be actually taken and to dent possibly on growth. And I'm referring here to the reform of the pension scheme. And it's not, you know, to those who say, oh, the IMF is asking for more austerity. No, we're not asking for more. We are asking that the 2016 reform that was decided and legislated be implemented. Nothing more than that, but no backtracking of what had been agreed. That's number one. And number two, an income tax reform that would actually increase the tax base of Greece in order to make sure that there is solid and sustainable source of revenue going forward. Now, this has now been agreed to and accepted by the Greek authorities. And the next phase that we need to enter in, and I'll come back to the we and why I'm saying we, is fine-tuning completion of those commitments, and the devil is always in the details, and we know that for a fact, and I have been exposed to it for the last 7 to 8 years. And once that is done, the discussion about the debt sustainability of Greece will have to be discussed, and we know that together with that, debt restructuring will be needed. The scope of which will be decided at the end of the program, the modalities of which have to be decided up front. And that leads me to the, what are we doing in relation to Greece? The blessing and the curse of the IMF as an institution is that we are accountable to the membership. And we are to provide that public good, which is financial stability, through the 3 business lines that we have: technical assistance, surveillance, and lending. When a country which is a member of the institution says, I need your help and I would like to please discuss the terms of a program with you, we don't leave the table, we have to do that. And it's up to the integrity and the economic expertise of our unbelievable staff to determine under what conditions we can actually commit international financing and the bulk of that financing. But however small or big it is, it will come with the kind of conditionalities that I have just explained, and I'll come back to conditionalities in a minute, which call for public finance management, discipline, leading to potential growth of that economy that will convince investors that yes, they can come back and invest in that particular country, so that the international lender that the IMF is can withdraw and eventually at the end of a cycle of 3 years generally be reimbursed. So that's the reason we are still offering support and help, elaborating under what terms we could possibly give some lending to the country. We're not there yet. But what I've seen in the last couple of weeks is heading in the right direction. We're only halfway through the discussion that needs to be had. Question from the top-notch experts on Greece over there. I'm sure you have in mind this, this May Eurogroup statement that referred to a variety of debt restructuring techniques. You know, I think that if and when we consider, and if and when I put a program to the board of the IMF, it will have to comply with the rules of any and all program. There will not be, and I've said that repeatedly, there cannot be any specific case for any particular country. The only dimension that is probably particular to any of the eurozone countries that the monetary policy is decided at the regional level, and that gives it a particular flavor, but that doesn't apply to the restructuring techniques. So those techniques are mentioned in a sort of broad brush way, and there is a multiplicity of them. So clearly, in accordance with the rules, in order to design the debt sustainability analysis that has to go with any debt proposed program, we need to have a combination of the fiscal targets going forward, including for the medium and long term, and then a choice of the techniques with a degree of specificity that will be sufficient for the board to understand what will be done and what is the level of commitment of those debt holders to apply those modalities that will be identified. I think that's what is, I hope it's clear enough. In other words, we cannot be in the generality of, you know, having a range of things, but we need to have a specificity of techniques and the modalities of how they would apply. On the investment in Greece, there's nothing more that we would like to see. And in a way, it's the purpose of any IMF program, is to restore the level of confidence so that investors look at a country and think for themselves, it's okay, I can invest in that country. I have no idea, and I confess my ignorance, about the amount and volume of investment under the Juncker plan that is actually directed to Greece at the moment. I'm sure there is investment to that effect, and I'm sure that there are European experts in the room that would actually say, yes, absolutely, I can see that. There is a privatization agency that has been set up, which is likely to operate, which has identified the target, which is completely staffed as far as I know now, and which is looking forward to operationalizing at the level that is required in order to satisfy the objectives. I have to tell you that on that front, we had great hopes for these privatizations over the course of the last 7 years. And I hope that with a bit of determination and competent people to deal with it, it will move forward and it will attract investors to actually subscribe to these privatizations.
Welcome to the Shakaama Live Show with your host, Shakaama. The International Monetary Fund is considering a conditional loan for Greece that would defer the release of the money until the nation's European creditors agree to provide debt relief, the fund spokesman said. The IMF would still prefer that Greece's eurozone partners agree to debt relief before the fund presents a loan proposal to its executive board, spokesman Gary Rice told the reporters Thursday in Washington. Any loan would have to be approved by the IMF's 24-member board, which represents the institution's 189-member country. Typically, countries that borrow from the IMF have to show their debt burden is substantial. While the IMF has expressed support for Greece's proposed reforms, the fund believes its debt is unsustainable unless euro area countries agree to ease its repayments terms under a European bailout program. If a debt relief deal isn't reached soon, the fund may consider a loan program that would be approved in principle, Rice said. The loan fund wouldn't be released until Greece, European creditors, provide enough relief to make the nation's debt sustainable. Quote, "We would still be insisting on reforms and debt relief before the IMF would disperse any of its funds," he said. So this is not a backing down or a walking away in any respect. A conditional loan would bring Greece one step closer to receiving more funding from the IMF, while bolstering the credibility of the eurozone bailout. A conditional loan would help avert a destabilization situation next month, when Greece may find it difficult to make payments under its 86 billion euro, $96 billion bailout from the eurozone. Quote, "It's good to avoid that financial stress on Greece, Rice said. It's unusual for the IMF to approve a loan in principle to a developed nation. The fund provides a series of such loans to developing countries in the 1980s, including to Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, and Sudan. The IMF is hoping for an agreement on a Greece program next week, said Rice. Discussion in debt relief measures for Greece will be in focus during a Eurogroup meeting in Luxembourg on June 15th that IMF Managing Director Christine LaGarde plans to attend, he said. Thank you for watching the Shakaama Live Show.